Hi, everyone. We're the Good Doctors of Abbey Research. I'm Dr. Donnelly.
And I'm Dr. Hinson.
We're going to talk to you a little bit today about Brexit.
We have a hot-ish take for you. Ish.
And that ish has been going since 2016. This
Yes.
has been a low simmer-ish.
Turn down the hotness on this. It's been simmering for a couple of years, and now, pretty soon, it could all
Boil over?
boil over. So we've come to talk to you about Brexit.
Couple things. For anyone who we haven't met before, hi. We lived in the UK for about 5 years, and in Northern Ireland in particular. Both of us are both academic and kind of personal experts in Northern Ireland. Not politics necessarily, but we certainly have an understanding of the implications of Brexit that are a little bit different than you may be getting in your local newspaper.
It's true.
We have both been asked by many American friends over the last couple of years, what the heck is going on with Brexit? What does Brexit even mean? What is gonna happen? What does this mean? What's going on? And we decided that maybe you have some of the same questions. So this is the Good Doctor's Guide to the British Border in Ireland.
As it was so recently called.
By Dara O'Brien.
By brilliant Irish comedian Dara O'Brien.
What is the backstop? Who is Theresa May? What is Brexit?
What's the withdrawal agreement? Who are all of these Dutch people that I feel like I can't pronounce their names, but I need to know who they are?
Who is Jacob Rees-Mogg and why does he matter? Because he's not elected to anything.
So many questions, relatively few answers, but we're going to talk about it anyway.
Okay, so a couple things to know. One, Brexit
Is
the leaving of the United Kingdom from the European Union.
literally the British exit from the British exit from the EU.
It was voted on in public referendum in May of 2016, June of 2016.
June of 2016.
June of 2016. That people have been agitating for it for many, many years, and then Prime Minister David Cameron agreed to put it to a public vote. Throughout the campaign, there was a lot of misinformation, potentially some hacking of data sources.
Hacking, what? That never happens. in
Never
politics.
happens. And the vote was very close. But the result was that the majority of the citizens of the United Kingdom who participated in the vote voted to leave. Now, a couple wrinkles in that. One is that Scotland and Northern Ireland voted fairly overwhelmingly to remain, as did the City of London and the City of Cardiff in Wales. And very, very quickly it became apparent that no one had made any plans as to what was going to happen if the referendum passed.
Yes, so it was this wonderful political gesture. Like, oh, everyone wants this referendum. I'll give them the referendum. Hardly anyone thought it was going to pass, even with a very strong campaign from the leavers, the people who wanted to leave. But I remember waking up the next day like, the referendum's over. We were all a little anxious, but it should be fine. And I turned on the television and I was like, what happened? So because they didn't expect the result that they expected, they had made no plans for the result that they got.
None.
So then all of a sudden, the government's in turmoil. David Cameron is out. Theresa May becomes the new prime minister.
And the head of the Conservative or Tory party.
And is tasked with bringing about a Brexit that she did not want, nor vote for, nor campaign for.
So a total of 56% of the people, I think that was it.
56.
So we're not talking about a crushing majority here.
No.
So pretty soon, in our opinion, most level-headed people started calling for a second referendum, saying like, okay, now that we know that you have no plan, now that we know that you don't know what's going on, and the longer we got away from it where every single political solution seemed poor.
And we started to hear a lot of stories about people who voted to leave as a political gesture.
Like as a protest
Like
vote.
as a protest vote, not thinking it would have consequences, which is a kind of a shocking realization to have after something of this magnitude. But there were enough people that were like, oh, I voted leave because I thought it wouldn't go anywhere. So it was just a protest vote. The combination of all of those factors led to a groundswell of support for a second referendum.
The biggest question of all is that British border in Ireland.
What?
Again, a couple things for you to know.
Yes.
Northern Ireland is a separate country from the Republic of Ireland. So when you are thinking about the Ireland that everyone you know has gone on vacation to, its capital is Dublin, and it is called the Republic of Ireland.
Dublin, down here.
And then up here is Northern Ireland, the northernmost 6 counties on the island, and they belong to the United Kingdom. They use the
That's the border.
Yeah. The border, by the way, is like a river, some guy's field, a couple fences.
You don't really know. I mean, at one stage during the conflict in Northern Ireland,
You knew where it was.
it was heavily militarized. The customs regulations were monitored. You would get searched by British Army personnel.
But now,
Since the end of the conflict,
like, I only knew I crossed the border because my cell phone network changed.
that's all been dismantled. And now there's something like 200 odd crossings on the border that you can make. And
like,
some parts of the border go through
People's property.
People's property, people's fields. Bailey's, Irish liqueur, Irish cream liqueur, is made. They have cows
In both countries.
in both countries because their farm crosses the border. So these were all issues that were not mentioned. So those of us in Northern Ireland during the lead up to the referendum were kind of, hey, what about Northern Ireland? And then after the referendum happened,
We're still like, hey, what about Northern Ireland?
and a lot of the British politicians who weren't talking about Northern Ireland before were kind of like, oh crap. Northern
What about
Ireland.
Ireland?
What are we gonna do?
So, also, there's a couple things, like a lot of the budget of the functionary budget of the Northern Irish government comes directly from the EU.
Yes.
Really, there's some really, like, big questions about a peace agreement that was signed in 1998 and how the European Union may or may not have guaranteed some of those legal backings.
It's an international peace treaty that allowed people to be both British and Irish. But if Brexit happens, then people might not be allowed to be both British and Irish. And the referendum doesn't have the political power to overturn an international peace treaty, and yet it probably is going to anyway.
So you can see
It's a very complicated situation.
how much fun this is. And then, I mean, you just think you're the EU, and you have now the only border in your
Land border.
in your protectorate is this thing that runs through the Bailey cows. You're going to need something to make sure that crap doesn't get nefarious, right?
Yes. So we should say, at where we are right now, when we were filming this, which is January 2019, there was a period of negotiation between members of the British government and the European Union in which they talked about
The Bailey's cows.
a whole host of issues. Shockingly, not shockingly, the largest sticking point was, what do we do with the British border in Ireland? What do we do with Northern Ireland? How do we fix this?
So the answer is a temporary backstop, where if within the next 2 years we don't figure out what to do with the border,
And we don't renegotiate a trade agreement between the EU
and the United
UK.
Kingdom, what will happen is like a soft-ish border-ish that will separate Northern Ireland from the rest of the United Kingdom. Almost no one wants this in reality. Some people don't want it because they appear to be delusional and don't think it's necessary. It's necessary. And other people don't want it because it like destroys their identity as a fill in the blank. But what's important to understand is that no one wants it permanently. This is just the crap. We did this thing and we don't know what's going on. So let's try this for a couple years and then let's try this. Brexit is essentially the ultimate rough draft of a 9th grade term paper with millions and millions of lives at stake. So you think you've had a bad year. You think you didn't accomplish your to-do list. Don't worry. Brexit will always hold your beer.
Yeah, I mean, one would love a look at Theresa May's to-do list and to see nothing that was crossed off on it. So the results of all of these negotiations led to an agreed upon, between the negotiation teams, withdrawal agreement. So it was an agreement for how the withdrawal was to take place in order that they could keep talking about how to renegotiate the trade border. It was basically an agreement we agree to move forward on the basis of these agreed upon facts.
These things will be in place for 18 months while we talk about more things.
That was what the withdrawal agreement was about. It came to be introduced to the rest of the world late November, early December.
Again, this is something no one likes necessarily, but it is, according to the EU, the only deal on the table.
The only deal we're going to get.
The best we're going to get. Members of Parliament in the United Kingdom hate it, and then therefore Theresa May refused to let them vote on it as of this moment.
Yes, so there was to be a people's vote on it, as you would hope. With
People's
agreement.
vote is the vote in the House of Commons, which is, so like for Americans, a people's vote is any vote that would take place in the House of Representatives, that would take place in Congress.
So it's the people who are represented by their representatives.
It's not like the second referendum.
It's not
People
a
are getting
referendum.
confused.
No. So this vote, where it was put to the people's representatives, was supposed to happen. But Theresa May found out that she was going to lose this vote, and so she decided not to have it, which threw the government into a bit of a kerfuffle. There was a question about her leadership. She survived.
Somebody stole a really big stick, and it was
There
dramatic.
was a mace that was very dramatic. If you want to be entertained and or disturbed by the state of politics in the UK, just look up the hashtag Macegate. But all of these things happened very recently in December, but then we've all taken a Christmas break. So we come back today, what do we have? The exact same problem that we had before Christmas, except more time has passed. The deadline for all of this to be agreed upon is the end of March of this year. So we are creeping up to a time where it, by our best guess and all the analysts that we spend a lot of time reading, we are going to kind of be backed into a Brexit that probably the majority of people in the United Kingdom no longer want. The EU certainly doesn't want it, but nobody really feels comfortable enough and or wants a threat to their power, they being politicians, to change anything about it. So yeah, I mean, I feel like it's one of those movies where like somebody is pointing, a gun or a weapon at another person and forcing them to back up, and then they just fall off the cliff. Like, that's what's happening. And the whole of the UK is just going to fall off the cliff because there was no other intervention in what was happening.
So, if you are planning travel to Europe this summer,
we have some advice.
We would be very, very clear as to what airports, if you're trying to get to the UK, just be clear. Use a lot of, have extra travel time.
Yeah. Because we don't know.
We have no idea.
We don't know what we don't know. We don't know what travel's going to look like. We don't know what the border's going to look like. We don't know what customs is going to look like.
We have no idea.
If you're traveling to Ireland in the next calendar year and you want to see Northern Ireland, we encourage everyone to go to Northern Ireland because it's a wonderful and a beautiful place. Bear that there might be travel difficulties in mind and put that into your planning. It's still possible to travel to all of these places. We encourage you to experience different cultures in different places, but this is a really, really big political kerfuffle that is then potentially going to really impact travel.
And it's also going to impact hundreds of millions of lives. And
yes,
I have been referring to Brexit as the big thing done badly for several years now. No one will ever convince me otherwise that this was a good idea. Because in my lifetime, I don't see how it will come out on the other side of this being a good idea. So cards on the table, we think this is terrible. Not only because of what it is potentially risking for the people of Northern Ireland, which is a lot, and for the people of Scotland and the people of Wales, but also for people in the EU whose businesses and trade rely on trade with the UK. And what does this look like? And how do farmers now make their living? Because that's in question. It should also be said that absolutely every single trade union in the UK has now come out and said that they would like a second referendum. Most in Ireland as well. There have been marches and groundswell, and if we had any sort of sway at all, certainly we would be using all of our political voice to call for a second referendum. So cards on the table, that's where we're at. But we do pay attention to this fairly closely. Everything we said at this moment is true.
As of January 2nd, 2019, these are the facts.
Our interpretations can be wrong. Totally fair.
Feel free to disagree with us. although pretty much we're willing to listen to anybody's thoughts and opinions, except we are
we're Remainers.
Pretty strongly opposed to Brexit. But if you have different opinions or perspectives or stats or arguments, we're always open to hear those and to share those.
Or a different definition of the backstop, because that was really, really, really simplified of a really, really complicated thing.
We are always trying to understand this complete and utter shambles as best we possibly can.
We hope we've helped.
Or at least made you feel like somebody else was equally frustrated and yelling into a void, because that's what we've been doing for the last 2 years.
Welcome to the omni-shambles of the United Kingdom.
Lest you think that any other government that you may be participating in or be under in any other part of the world is complicated or difficult or horrible.
Brexit will always hold your beer.
Yes.
In the meantime, while we all wait breathlessly to figure out what the heck is going to happen.
We promise to do another update after the deadline passes.
Or if there's any other...
Or if there's something else that happens.
We will continue to be your American translators. I'm Dr. Donnelly.
I'm Dr. Hinson.
We're the good doctors of Abbey Research, and we frustratedly wish you a happy Wednesday.
Bye.
Bye.